Hello ladies and frogs, and welcome back to another video. So if any of you have had the pleasure of making it to one of my streams, you're already familiar with this setup currently. If you have not had the chance to make it to a stream, this is my PNGtuber, QB! Isn't she so cute? Isn't she so adorable? Don't you guys just love her? So I'm sure you guys are wondering, okay Maeve, why are you showing us your model out of the blue? And that is just an okay question to ask, actually. I am making this video today to give you guys an in-depth tutorial on how to make a PNGtuber, at least the way that I make it. There are already a dozen tutorials out there for the program that I use, but I tend to notice they're a bit hard to follow at times, and they don't always delve into the specifics of the program. So I'm going to be giving you guys a step-by-step guide on how to create a model from start to finish. From drawing the actual model to organizing to exporting, you name it. I will also have everything timestamped, so if you have any specific questions, feel free to just skip ahead. Welcome to PNGtubing for Dummies. Let's get started. So we're immediately going to jump into the drawing aspect of things. As you can see, I already have a model ready to use. I drew her out ahead of time to cut the video's time, but I promise you aren't missing much. Our volunteer today is Chio, a brand new OC that I just adopted recently from a really cool artist named Bug, who I'm going to have listed in the description if you guys want to go ahead and check them out. Now, the drawing aspect of creating a PNGtuber is quite possibly the most important, so let me break down how we go about drawing a character. For starters, you'll notice on the right side of the screen, all of my layers are separated. Without over-explaining, the amount of layers you will have dictate how lively your model will look and how much movement will be possible overall. This is definitely up to artist preference. Personally, I like my models to look as mobile as possible, so you'll see that almost every single thing that I can have separated is separated. Now, if you're a beginner, don't let the look of all of these layers scare you. I promise it's not as overwhelming as it looks. I'll give you a quick breakdown on what my layers look like to give you an idea of how to separate yours. I'd like to preface this by saying that a lot of my layer separation is up to preference, strictly. My model is very extra. I would say the separation is a bit advanced, so don't feel bad if you don't separate yours as much. I think the bare minimum amount of layers you'll need for a basic PNGtuber would be the torso and the neck, the head, 2 to 3 layers for hair. I typically like to do 1 layer for the back, 1 layer for the bangs, and then 1 layer for the scalp or the root area. The left and the right arms respectively should be separated. And then keep in mind for the mouth, you'll need at least 2 different layers. 1 open and 1 closed for the talking animation that we'll get into later. You'll notice I went a little extra with mine, so I actually have 3 different layers for the mouth. You're going to want to keep that same theory for the eyes as well. For the program we're going to be using, you only need 2 frames for the eyes. You're going to need 1 closed, and then you're going to want to do 1 open. Now, as I've said, I went a bit extra with my eyes, and I separated the irises and the scleras from the eyelashes, but that is definitely not something you need to do. You can draw the entire eye on 1 layer and have that be its own piece. For my PNGtubers, specifically my female ones, I do also like to separate the chest and the torso. That adds a little bit more movement to it, but it's definitely optional. Now I want to get into a more detailed breakdown of my layers to give you guys some ideas for what you might want to do. Now, 2 really quick things that I want to mention while getting started with the PNGtuber is first, every single layer needs to be on the exact same canvas size. I know you might want to crop all of these after exporting. That's definitely not a good idea. It's going to make things a lot more difficult for you when it gets to the rigging stage. So don't feel the need to crop down any of the images that you end up exporting. The second most crucial part of drawing out a PNGtuber is that everything has to overlap. You'll notice that I have all of my layers organized from what I need to be on the bottom versus what I need to be on the top. So, because the braids go on the very back of the model, they're at the very bottom. The mouth is going to have to be at the very top. That's why it's at the very top. It's easiest to show with the torso and the head. The head goes above the torso, and the torso is going to go below the head. Now, you'll notice if I turn the head layer off, there's a little bit of overlap from where the neck meets the head. That is super, 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 I cannot stress enough how super important it is when rigging a PNGtuber, because that's going to stop you from having a lot of voids in the piece. Like I said, layer organization is super important. It's going to make the exporting process a lot easier for you. So obviously you're going to want the torso underneath the head. You're going to have the upper arms, or just the arms in general, underneath the torso. Otherwise, that's going to look a little goofy. And that principle is going to be the same for every single piece of the PNGtuber that you draw out. You'll also notice I have both of the braids separated. I obviously also have the buns separated between the left and the right. I have the scalp separated, and then I'm a little bit extra, so my bangs are actually 2 separate layers. This is to add movement to the character. You'll notice when we start rigging, and I want to emphasize again, overlapping is super important. Now, the bottom bang is going to be underneath the top bang, and while it's moving, we don't want to see any voids or anything. So if I turn the opacity down on top bang, you'll notice there's a little bit of overlap right there where the bangs meet. That is super important. Another important thing I want you guys to be mindful of when drawing the clothes of the character, if you're gonna have baggy clothes, for example, like her kimono, where they're draping off her shoulders, you're gonna want to draw the back half of whatever you're drawing on a separate layer. This is gonna make it a lot easier for you later on to, for example, rig over the arms. Now, I've shown you a little bit about what I've done. I've discussed the necessities for creating a model. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about the exporting side of things. Now, ahead of time, I'm going to open up my files folder on my PC and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to name this folder Chio. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to organize your layers while you're exporting them. So I'm going to start from the very bottom and work my way up. As a quick hint, for whatever program you're using, you're going to want to make sure that there is a transparent background for every single item that you export. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'm going to go to File, Export, make sure everything's right. And then you're going to make your life so much easier if you organize it by name ahead of time. So I'm going to open up the Chio folder, and then I'm going to label this back, left, braid. And we are going to do that with every single item. This is probably one of the most tedious parts of creating a PNGtuber, but it's not super bad. And export all of these layers, and I will be back shortly. Now, as you can see, I've exported almost every layer that we need. I only have the mouths left, a little differently than you would for the rest of the layers. So seeing as I have 3 mouths here, I'm actually going to export them by number. So we're going to take the closed mouth, we're going to go up to File, Export, and then we're going to call this one number 1. I did this wrong the first time. So we're going to replace. Now, it's going to get a little complicated here, but basically what you're going to be doing with these layers is creating a sprite sheet or an animation. So you're going to want to label the mouth according to basically which frame it's going to be if it were an animation. So I named my first one 1 because I would like the mouth to be closed for the first frame. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to label it 2. I'll export this and I will label it 3. And then this is a little extra of me. I'm actually going to go back and export this mouth again, but this time I'm going to label it 4. And it is super important that if you plan on using the same mouth multiple times within the same animation, that you export it as 2 separate files and label them accordingly. This is super important for the website we're going to use to create this sprite sheet for the mouths. Now that we're done with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up my browser. Once I have my browser open, I'm going to go to codeandweb.com. You'll see it's already filled in, /free sprite sheet packer. I will have this linked down in the description for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. We have a little sprite sheet here as an example. I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and then I'm going to click Add Sprites. We're going to go to our pictures, we're going to go to the Chio folder, and we're going to start exporting these to the website in the order that we have them in. So I'm going to start with 1, I'm going to click Add Sprite again, and I'm going to do 2. And then you're just going to keep doing this until you have all of your frames exported. Now I've exported the files and I've zoomed out so you can see all of them. If I zoom back in, you're going to see in the top right corner, it's going to ask you to download as a PNG or as a JSON file. Before you download, you want to make sure here in the settings that the layout is set to horizontal instead of compact, because that's usually the default for this website. You want to make sure the data format is JSON hash and the padding is 1 pixel. I'm going to go ahead and download that. When it's done downloading, I'm going to pull back up our Chio folder. I'm going to open this in the folder it's in, and then I'm going to drag and drop it into the Chio folder. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and look up PNGtuber Plus. Now, you'll click the first link. It's going to be on itch.io. You're going to go ahead and download it. It is a free software. You're going to go through the motions, download now. It's going to ask if you'd like to tip the artist for their work. It is not mandatory, but you can if you want to show them a little bit of support. Just take me to downloads, and then you'll download PNGtuber Plus for whatever PC you have. I already have this downloaded, so I'm actually going to close this out and open up the program myself. Now, typically when you first download the program, there's going to be a little tiny guy in the center, that's going to be the tutorial model that you can go ahead and play around with. I don't currently have him. I have QB pulled up, so we're going to show off her for a second. As I said, QB was my first ever model that I made, so you can see there's a lot of minor mistakes here. There's a little bit of voids. You can see where things have been separated. She's basically a giant what not to do when rigging a PNGtuber. Now, we're going to start out by looking at a bit of the layout. So you'll see in this bottom corner, obviously if you're going to be streaming, you can have it transparent. If you plan on editing it into something later, you can have it as a green screen. You have blue, pink, and you can also choose your own color for the background. This is going to be the max FPS, the bounce force, the bounce gravity. That basically means how your PNGtuber is going to move. Now, QB is a little close to us right now, so I'm going to go ahead and hold Control, and I'm going to zoom out with my mouse. So you're going to hold Control and you're going to scroll the wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. All of these settings over here are basically going to dictate how fast your model moves, how much it bounces. I don't know exactly how much I can show with my QB model because she is naked underneath these clothes. We'll get into most of these settings later on, so I'm not going to focus too much on them for now. If you go over here to the mic, it's going to show you where the output is coming from, basically what your PNGtuber is going to be hearing and responding to. So I have mine set to my microphone. So these two bars down here are actually dictating when your PNGtuber activates and when it goes back into quiet mode. So your PNGtuber has two different states, a talking state and a non-talking state. The bar on the bottom dictates how sensitive the mic is to make them start talking. And then the bar on the top is going to be how quiet it has to be for the PNGtuber to stop talking. So if you notice, I will turn this bar up super high, and now she's not talking anymore. I would have to talk really loudly. I would have to talk. There we go. So it's a little finagling. It just depends on how sensitive your microphone is. I like to have mine set pretty far down. And then this, obviously, as you can see, when that blue bar meets the arrow, she stops talking. So I'm going to go ahead and lower that just a bit. So she's got a bit of a delay before she goes back into her non-talking state. Now we're going to go ahead and click this little pencil down here, which is going to bring us into the editing mode of the program. There's a bunch of stuff up here we'll get into in just a second. I'm gonna first show you how to delete a model because that is gonna be your first step when opening up this program because you're gonna want to delete the little white guy that shows up when you first open the program. I'm gonna go ahead and click on QB, and as you'll notice, she now has a highlighted box around her. If you continue to click her, you will select different layers of her. So you can see I've clicked on the body. Now I'm connected to the shirt. I'm going to go ahead and click on her body, and this is going to be her parent layer, and I'm going to press delete. And that is going to get rid of the entire model. In order to import a model, I'm going to go ahead and press escape on my keyboard, and that is going to open up the file directory for PNGtuber Plus. Now, if I right click the file down here, and I open up wherever my folder was for Chio, you're going to see she's right here. I'm going to drag and drop her folder into the file directory. I can now close both of these folders, and then I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to click add new sprite. I'm going to double click on this folder that says Chio, and you'll see that we have all of the images that we exported from our art program previously. You're going to want to go ahead and click on whichever layer you're trying to import, and you're going to click open. And this is now the second most tedious part of this process. You have to individually import every single layer from top to bottom into the program. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick, and I will be right back. Now, we've exported almost everything, and it's looking kind of like a hot mess. The last thing I have to export is her closed mouth. Whatever you named the closed mouth, whatever number it was for your sprite sheet, you're going to go ahead and open that, and then you are totally done exporting all of your layers. Now, she's looking like a hot mess right now, but that's super okay. We're going to go ahead up to the top right corner, and we're going to click this little eyeball, and that is going to open up all of our layers right here. Now you can do what I showed you earlier and just click on different sections of the body to highlight separate things, or you can go directly to the layer directory over here and highlight whatever you need to. Now we know where the layer directory is. Say we go ahead and select a layer. I'll select the torso because it's at the very top. You'll notice there's a bunch of stuff going on over here. It looks kind of like the dashboard of a plane. That's okay. We're not going to focus on any of this right now. What we do want to focus on is this right here. Now, if you exported on the same canvas size layer, like I told you to do earlier, everything should import in pretty easily and up like Chio is here. However, if that doesn't happen, say her torso came in a little wonky, a little sideways, that's totally okay. we're going to use WASD on your keyboard, and we're going to go ahead and center her torso. We're going to do that by pressing and holding D until X says 0. If you want more accurate movement, you can just click WAS or D. If you're looking to make a bigger move, you can go ahead and hold it, and that's going to move it for you consistently. Now, the X position is going to be where this layer falls horizontally. So if you want to move it on the X position, you're going to want to press either A or D and move it side to side. Obviously, if you want to move it up or down, you're going to want to do W or S, and that'll move it around for you. If we press Control and we scroll in again on our mouse, you'll see this little plus sign here. This is the origin point of the layer. This means however your layer moves, the movement is gonna originate from this point here. So for the torso, it's not super important. You can leave it directly in the center where it is now. It is gonna be super important moving forward, say, for the head. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to hold down O on my keyboard while using WASD, and that is going to move this origin point for me to wherever I'd like it to be. For the head specifically, I'm going to want the origin point to land right underneath her chin where the head and the neck connect. Now, I personally like to adjust the origin point layer by layer, and you'll see me do that as we proceed to rig. For now, I want Chio looking a little more normal. So how do we do that? Now for a PNGtuber, you're going to want the origin of movement to stem from the torso or the center of the piece. So we're going to call the torso our parenting layer. I'm going to go ahead and for this example, I'm going to take the head. I'm going to click this little link up here in the top left corner. You'll see the background is highlighted blue and there's now a little chain connecting our cursor to the origin point of the head. We're going to go over to the layer directory, scroll all the way up, and we're going to click on torso. Now, the head and the torso are connected. This means that whenever the torso moves, the head is going to move. And you'll see why that's important later. This is where it's going to get a little bit complicated. I don't like to parent the hair and the eyes and the mouth or any head accessories to the torso. I like to parent them to the head. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and take our sprite sheet. I'm going to click link and I'm going to connect it to the head. I'm going to do the same thing with the scleras. We're going to scroll through and look for anything that needs to go on the head, and we're going to parent it really quick. Now I've gone ahead and I've connected all of the head layers, the bangs, the buns, the braids, the scalp, the horn, and the eyes, all to the head. Now I'm going to go ahead and take all of the clothing pieces and all of the other little body pieces, and I'm going to connect those to the torso. Now we've gone ahead and connected everything to the torso. And it doesn't look like that made much of a difference now, but I promise once we get her moving later, that's going to be a super important feature. For now, we're going to go ahead and start cleaning her up a little bit to get ready for the rigging process. So for this example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click her closed eyes layer. Now you'll see this highlighted, her eyes, and we're going to come over here to the left side of the screen, and you'll see down here these two little boxes. When you click this box, there is a closed mouth and an open mouth. And when you click this one, you'll see an open eye. You click it again, you'll see a closed eye, and you click it again and the X will reappear. This is to control what layer will be visible at what time. So I'm going to go ahead and click this again. You'll see the eyes open. That means that these eyes are only going to be visible when her eyes are open. I'm going to go ahead and click that one more time, and now they're closed. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the open eyes, and I'm going to click this once again. And now you can see we have a cute little blinking animation. Now for the mouth, we're going to click the closed mouth layer. We're going to come over here and we're going to click this once. Now, this mouth will only be visible when we are not talking. We're going to go ahead and click on the sprite sheet. You can see the mouths on either side. Now, before we mess with any of these things over here, we're going to look up here. So you can see that there is a category called sprite frames. You are going to want to turn that up to however many frames are in your sprite sheet. So because I did 4 frames, I'm going to put it to 4. And a really fun feature about this is you really don't have to guesswork or get it specific. You can use the arrows on your keypad to move the numbers up or down. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4. And then the animation speed is going to basically be how fast your PNGtuber is talking. Personally, I think the sweet spot is 20. So I'm going to go ahead and set the animation speed to 20. Then you're going to see drag and squash here. Now this is going to be how much her mouth moves while she's talking. The drag is how much of a delay there's going to be in mouth movement when she bounces up and down. So I'm going to set the drag to about 1 for now. And it might be hard to see, but when she bounces, there's a slight delay in her mouth movement. Just to show you guys a little easier, I'm going to set the drag up super high. So when we talk, you can see there's a pretty obnoxious amount of drag to her mouth when she speaks. So that's what drag dictates. Squash is going to be pretty self-explanatory. It's how much the mouth is going to squash in or outward when she goes into that talking state. Just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and set the squash outrageously high. And you can see that it's squashing inward pretty aggressively. Now, if we go on the opposite end of the spectrum and it's at 16.75 right now, we're going to go to negative 20.5. Now, when it squashes, you can see it's kind of squashing outward. It's getting skinnier, whereas positive squash is making it stretch to be longer. I'm going to go ahead and set this back to 0. You can do the same thing with the arrows and set it back to 0. And I'm going to set the drag to 0 just for now. Now we're going to come down here by the boxes we talked about earlier. I'm going to click it once and then twice. So now that mouth will only show up when she's talking, like right now. So now we've gotten the little animation bits out of the way. So you can see I came up here and I selected torso as a layer. You can see it's highlighted. Now, the X and the Y frequency, that's going to dictate how much your character moves while it's ambient. So I like to make mine float a little bit and have a little bit of movement, because even when I'm not talking, it looks like it's almost breathing. And I like to set that to around here. So we're going to do 0.03, 0.04, how about? So that's going to dictate how fast our model moves up and down. The Y amplitude is going to dictate how strong the movement is. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to about 20. I also like to set the squash to about 0.5 because it just creates this super cute, like I said, breathing animation. So now we've covered blinking, we've covered making the mouth move, we've covered making the entire model move. Now, obviously she's still looking a hot mess, so we're going to organize her a little bit. As we can see here, if we go over to the left side, we're going to see this area that says layer. This means that the torso is in layer position 0, which means it is at the very bottom currently. And we want the torso to actually stay on the bottom. Let's say I want to bring the sleeves back a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the right sleeve, and you're going to use Q and E on your keyboard to dictate the placement of the layer that you're on. So Q is going to be going backwards. As you can see, it's already moved behind the torso. If we hit E, it's going to bring it to layer position +1. So I'm going to go ahead and move the sleeves behind the torso. And the torso is a super good starting point because it's going to show us where everything needs to be. And you're just going to do that so on and so forth until all of the layers are in the positions you'd like them to be. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I will be right back. I'm jumping in really quick here to say that it is going to take a little bit of finagling to get all of the layers to the way you want. Now you can see all of the layers are where they need to be. And as you continue to move things around and rig the character to add more movement, you might notice that some layers need a little more adjusting, and that's totally okay to have to go back and forth. Now, we're going to add even more movement to the character. So if you remember earlier, when we were talking about origin points, this little crossover here, this is the point in time where we're going to start moving these around. We're going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see a little better. We're going to hold O, like I said earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and place the origin point right where the overlap is. So you can see I've kind of placed it in the center right here. Now, if we go ahead and say we're going to set the drag to 5 or 6 again, we can already see it's looking a lot better. Now, I usually, for all of my layers, like to add a little bit of drag and a little bit of squash, but the amount that you add per layer is definitely up to personal preference. And I have a mental picture in my mind of the way that this article of clothing moves, and I do think there would be a little bit of rotational drag. So I'm going to go ahead and set the rotational drag to 3, and I think that should be good. So you can see how important origin points are for rigging a piece. Now we're going to go over to the left side. I'm going to go ahead and set the origin point really quick. You can see for this layer, we set rotational drag to 3. So for the opposite side, we're actually going to go into the negatives. So I'm going to do -3 instead. And I think that looks a lot nicer and a lot more uniform. Then for the squash, I'm going to go ahead and set that to -1.5 instead of the +5.5 that the other half has. And you can already see, I feel like that just makes it look a lot more uniform. And so that's basically what we'll do for all of these pieces. Now for the back part of her sleeves, like we talked about earlier, you can see they're kind of just sitting in the same spot. And I don't really want them to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and find them on the list, we're gonna go back up here and click this little link right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and link them to the front of the sleeve. That way they move together. And you can see why it was super important to start parenting the layers and linking them together before we started the movement process. Because as you can see, I linked the back of the top of her kimono to the front of it. And you can see there's a little gap right there because it was in movement while I was parenting. So it's not exactly where I'd like it to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and use WASD again to move it around a little bit until I get it to a point I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and rig the rest of this, and then I will be back when I'm done. Now we have our model fully rigged and ready to go. And we could stop here if we wanted to, and that would be totally okay. But say we want to add a little something extra, right? I really like the way that Chio turned out. I think she's super cute. But what if I don't want her braids on sometimes? Or what if I want to take away her bangs sometimes, right? And that's where toggles come into play. And a lot of people use toggles for outfits, for different emotions. So we're going to go ahead and click on the torso. We're going to come over here and we're going to go all the way down, and you'll see this little number pad right here. I want to get rid of her braids. I'm going to go ahead and click on the braid. I have the braid that I'd like selected, and we're going to make it toggle 2. So if I want toggle 2 to not have braids, I'm going to go ahead and click it. That's going to make the braid go dark. And now you see we don't have the braids on anymore. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other braid. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to do the bangs as well. Now her bangs, her braid, and her horn are gone. So I really like this, but what if I want her braids back super quick? So you're going to come over here to the settings, and you're going to see that there are these hotkeys right here. And these are the keys that you're going to set on your PC to change the toggle of your character. I like her right now without the bangs, the braids, and the horn, but what if I want those back? I'm going to go ahead and click costume 1, because that is a toggle that's going to have those braids. And that's how we do toggles. It's pretty easy. It took me quite a bit to figure out. I don't know why in my head it was such a complicated process, but it's definitely pretty easy. Now, once you're totally done rigging your PNGtuber and you want to go ahead and save it, you're going to come up here and press Save Avatar. And then in the file name right here, you're going to go ahead and name it yourself. So I'm naming mine Chio PNGtuber. You can see that I already had that listed right here. That was because I had already saved her previously to make sure that I didn't lose my progress. And you do definitely want to save on occasion, just in case the program crashes or something happens. You definitely don't want to lose all of that progress. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. It's going to ask me if I want to override because I've already saved it once. I'm going to press OK because this is the most recent version. The program is going to freeze up for a second. That is pretty normal. And now you can see in the bottom left corner, QB is covering it, but it does say saved avatar. So like I did earlier, we're going to go ahead and click on the torso, which is the parent layer, and we're going to press delete. Chio's gone. Say I want to bring her back. We're going to hit load avatar, and we are going to find the Chio save, which is right here. The icon is going to be a little piece of paper with a dog ear. Click that, and we're going to hit open. It is going to freeze up for a second once again. That's totally normal. And she's back. So we've gone ahead and we finished rigging our PNGtuber. What do we do now? Say you want to start streaming or you want to record videos. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up OBS. While OBS is opening up, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the settings over here. I'm going to go ahead and set the background color to transparent. I went ahead and small screened her. Now for this next step, the PNGtuber Plus window does have to be open. For me personally, it's not a huge deal because I have 2 monitors. If you do not have 2 monitors, you just have to make sure that your PNG is open in the background, no matter what you're doing. So we're gonna bring OBS over here so you guys can see it. You can see I have a lot of stuff going on. This is just how you're gonna upload your PNGtuber into OBS. So we're gonna come down here and we're gonna click Add Source, and we're going to do a window capture. We're gonna go ahead and click on the window capture, and we will name it Chio. Press OK. And now it's going to bring us over here, and we're going to go ahead and in the window select, we're going to select PNGtuber Plus. There she is. Isn't she so cute? But she's on a black background. We don't really want that. So capture method says automatic currently. We're going to go to Windows 10. Now you can see she's got a transparent background, and we're going to click OK. And now you can see she's here. Now, with OBS, obviously, you're going to have to know a little bit about OBS when you start doing this, but that's how you bring her in. And now you're ready to stream with your brand new PNGtuber. So there you go. That is how to create a PNGtuber from start to finish. I hope the tutorial was easy to follow. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below if I didn't answer anything, and I'd be willing to explain it the best that I can. I also wanted to give a huge thank you to one of my friends who actually got me into PNGtubing. They've been a huge source of support for me while I learn how to do all of this. I am going to go ahead and link them down below as well, so you can go check out some of their work because they also rig and they have some pretty cool art. Their name is Crow, so you'll see them down there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. If you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!